If you're running Claude code in Terminal, Cursor, VS Code, your API keys are sitting in a plain text file. And every time you connect to a server, Claude is exposing those. So I found a simple workaround, and I'm going to show you in this video how I did it. By the way, if you don't know me, my name's Aaron. I've been marketing online since 1999. I've worked with some of the top coaches in the world. And like everyone else, I'm going all in on Claude Code lately. And I want to share some tips and tricks and hacks that I'm finding. So wanted to share this 1Password integration that you can use in Claude Code, OpenClaw, Codex, whatever you want. So basically, I was struggling with this, and I've seen other people mention it in different groups, as well as when people are like teaching how to use skills and this and that. You know, the problem that we're all having is basically we've got all these API keys for MCP servers, different tools that we're using, SSH keys, etc. And so one, it's a lot to manage, especially if you need to like refresh them. And then two, every time you post it into Claude, there's that chance that it could get exposed, whether there's a breach or whatever, or if you're, sharing your stuff with other people, even clients. This is a great way to both manage it and kind of secure it. So I use 1Password as my password manager. I believe LastPass has something similar. So basically I had seen where an email or something that they had posted where, they're basically, sharing more integrations, and they're actually working on a direct integration with Claude and the others, I believe, but it's not available as of now. So, I had come across this, and I think I used it initially just to connect to GitHub and use Touch ID to authorize that in Terminal. And then as I was switching from, Claude Desktop, Terminal, I'm working in anti-gravity now, Cursor, etc., I finally ended up going down this path of integrating it. And it's pretty straightforward. There are a couple different levels to it. So I'm using the CLI integration, just like if you've set up any, MCPs or whatever, it's pretty simple, similar to that. They've got developer docs. The confusing thing, at least for me in the beginning, was just like all the different options on how to integrate it. So basically, if you haven't looked at well, I'm sure you have. If you haven't looked, like here's an example of an insecure .env file. This isn't real. But, basically every time you share your key with Claude or whoever, Claude saves it to your global .env environment file, whatever it's called. And so one, it's storing it. This was the same thing with OpenClaw. And so, it's reading it every time. It shows up in the chat, even though you tell it not to expose your API keys. And if you've dealt with this, I'm sure you found, the same thing. You write rules, you put it in your Claude.md, don't ever share this. Don't, even if you write it directly to the file, I would still see this popping up. Okay. So basically I can even show you what mine looks like now. So this is the end result. So instead of the actual keys being exposed, you end up with this OP, and then agents is my service account, which I'll show you in a second. Like Meta API credentials, that's the name of, if you use a password manager, you save a name to it. And then the app ID or the secret or the token, that's just like the field name, right? So basically what this is doing is it's telling, you integrate it, and then you're telling Claude, hey, whenever you need to call this token or key or whatever it is, use the 1Password skill, which I created for myself to manage those passwords, right? To basically look it up. And so it's pretty straightforward. I would just follow the docs on use with CLI, and you can, install it this way. I'll go ahead and share my skill. Now, look, this isn't I'm not a security professional or anything like that. So do your own research. This is what's working for me. And there are, like I said, there's different levels to this. So I went from putting it right in the env to then I originally got this set up, except I was using the biometric, the Touch ID. So every time it would call the key, the MCP or the API server, I would have to authenticate it. So I was, and sometimes I'm running with skip dangerous permissions and stuff like that, dangerously skip permissions. And so that was getting annoying because I was having to authorize it. So then what I did was go down this service account road. So first, tier 1, and if you want, you could start there, is just get it set up, and you'll notice that you have to authorize it every time. Same thing in Claude Desktop. It was being funky this morning. I think they went down a bit, but now that with this newest update, I need to test it again. But I'll fire up a session and I might have to authorize it 3-4 times or something like that. So you can do that kind of tier 1 level, which is essentially just setting up this CLI. You can use my skill, you can create a skill, whatever, and then that will get you that biometric. But then I was asking it like, okay, well, how do I approve like a whole session or whatever? And essentially what the option for that is, it's in here somewhere, CLI, the service accounts, I was just on it. So the service accounts are basically, so what you end up doing if you're using 1Password, you will create like a developer account. I believe it's only in like the paid accounts, not just the personal, but I might be wrong on that. I use it for my business. So I have these, you have these different vaults. And so what I did is I created this agent vault, which is a service account. And again, you can just kind of walk through it. And then essentially what you do is you just, load up all of your API credentials in there. And then this is what I was referring to is like this Gemini API credential. This one is OpenClaw. This is the actual key. And then Claude or OpenClaw isn't using this. This is just if I want to quickly click on it to go refresh it. And you can even set like, if you set it, either manually or if a key has like a 90-day refresh or whatever, you can set that date in there. It gives you like a big reminder. You can change that to like a week out or something. And then that's an easier way to like rotate your keys. And then when you do that, so just like if you've ever hired someone, remote, whether it's LastPass or 1Password, instead of sharing your password with them or with a team member or your mom or whatever, as soon as you share that, it's exposed, right? Whereas what you do is you add them to, or you share your passwords with another person, and 1Password sits between you and the other person. So they're able to log in. They never see your password. And then if you want to change the password, 1Password manages that. Or if you want to remove this person, you just delete it. Well, it's the same thing with the agents or the CLI, is you basically give them access to this vault, this password, and then when you want to rotate those credentials or delete it or whatever, you can just do that. Now, you could probably set up like a Claude service account and a OpenClaw or whatever, and then just remove it that way too. 6-in-1 type of deal, right? So, okay, basically, I'll post the docs here, but essentially it's just like anything else. This is kind of a walkthrough of like the different tiers as best as I know it. Now there is also a third tier and I haven't played with this yet. So the first way I had it was I had to authorize every time. The way I set it up with the service account is I don't have to authorize it every time. It just has access to that. Which is essentially the way your env file works now. You dump that in there once. You don't have to, unless you say, can you use this? Yes. But other than that, you're not like signing in every time, right? There's this third level where I think we can make it to where it's like every time I start a new session, I want to authorize it. That's an extra layer, but I haven't done that yet. So follow the docs, on the developer. You just, in terminal, brew install. Sorry, my mouse has just been super weird. And then, so you can basically get that set up, create the service account in 1Password. You go to developer and sign that up, create the service account, name it something. And then basically, so my skill essentially should do all of this, right? So this is like the full walkthrough, and you don't have to create your env file. It will create it for you and all that. And so I've got the setup guide, README, and then just the skill. And so then anytime I'm in if I'm working with something, I'll save it to my 1Password vault. And I was just taking a screenshot of it, so if I'm setting up Gemini, I'll just be like, hey, here, I just added it to 1Password. And I would just like take a screenshot of like, what it said, just because it was like, well, I need to know what the name is, right? Because you might call one thing like a username, a credential. There's others where you need like 4 or 5 different fields. You can do all of that. It just needs to know what the name of it is and then what each of those fields are. So if it's multiple, I'll just take a screenshot, or you can, like this credential, you can copy it, this secret reference, and you can just tell it like, hey, I set up Gemini, here's the 1Password field or whatever it's called. And then just paste that in there, right? And so that's what gets inserted, that OP. But again, I usually just screenshot it. And then I'll say, make sure to use the /1Password skill for this. And it took several tries to get Claude to listen to me and not try to like, hey, especially if you're using someone else's skill, that it's written in the skill to check the env file for your Gemini token or your Meta API key or whatever. So that's where this skill comes in to play. And by all means, review it, check it over. It's not passing anything out. It's just telling Claude to use the frickin' 1Password instead of the env. So the skill itself here, basically, yeah. So this OP read versus P write or something like that. But basically, it's just showing like the vault name, the title, and then the service name. Yeah, the OP item get, here it is, like the fields right there, and the label ID. So that's basically right here, OP vault name, item name, field name. And then really this isn't needed now, but it's basically, don't read the existing file, just append it. And then it just is referencing if you're setting up a new MCP server, how to do it. That's all the skill is. Hopefully this helps someone. Again, I think I'm sure LastPass has something similar. I don't use them anymore. If you're not using a password manager, definitely recommend 1Password. They've been consistent and like, security breaches, all that stuff have been locked down. So I haven't had any issues. But anyways, hopefully this is helpful. I'll drop either in Google Docs or maybe I'll throw it on GitHub, a link to my skill and those README docs, and then links to 1Password and stuff that I found. But anyways, let me know if you have any questions or issues, or you can improve this. Let me know what I'm not doing or could do better. I'd love to see. So, all right, thanks. Take care.